Welcome to Hockey Night in New York, where Islanders hockey always reigns supreme. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, Hockey Night in New York is your home for all things Isles. Now, let's drop the puck and get this party started.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Hockey Night in New York. Welcome to the program, everyone. It is Sunday, January 26, 2025. Coming at you live from Floyd Media in Rockville Center. Got another wonderful show coming up for you tonight. Evan Rawal of the Denver Gazette will be joining us to talk Avs, talk big blockbuster trades that's been happening here. We got a guest in the studio, a Patreon guest. Jack is back. Looking forward to talking to him.
Jack is back.
During Questions Brewing. My name is Sean Cuthbert. With me 98.7% of the time is Mr. Stefen Rosner. Stefen, how you doing?
I'm doing great. You know what's crazy?
What's that?
Players are better when they win after games. It's a great fun fact. You should know.
That is true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I discovered that pretty quickly.
Yeah. Fans are happier when, generally speaking,
well,
when
we'll
the team wins.
We'll get into that, but yeah.
All right, big show coming up. Before we dive in, let's talk about our wonderful sponsors, starting with Main Street Board Game Cafe. Find your crowd and unplug your game at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. We are also proud to be sponsored by Center Station Bar and Grill. Catch every Isles game with great food and drinks at 279A Sunrise Highway in Rockville Center all season long. We're also proud to be sponsored by Razor and Kniff, attorneys at law, ready to fight for you. Check them out at razorandkniff.com. That is RAISERANDKENNIFF.com for a free consultation. And last but not least, we are also very proud to be sponsored by Tovi Hockey, the innovative hockey technology company and creator of the Diamond Air Blade. Get 10% off at tovihockey.com with promo code HNINY10. And folks, if you're hanging out with us live and you want to ask your questions during Questions Brewing, type in Questions Brewing, followed by your question, and we will more than likely get to it. And now, Stefen, it's time for Experience Points. Presented by Main Street Board Game Cafe, where we make our points about the Islanders' experience last week. Now, for us, are you okay, pal?
I'm good.
It was a short week because we did the rare Tuesday night show.
The rare Tuesday on a Sunday, though.
Yeah, back to it. We're seeing so much of each other.
It's brutal, man.
It's all,
Hell,
wow. So only 2 games to talk about. Give us a little time to touch on some other things that may or may not have happened in Island country. But we'll start with Friday night. 3-1 win over the Philadelphia Flyers. They give up the first goal. Duclair and Horvat score 55 seconds apart, and then they get the win. They hold it down in the third period. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, Romanov dummied Cam York.
Yes, he did.
That was a hit. Romanov lays his hits. They're usually big hits. You have the Miles Wood one a couple years ago. You have last year, Jack Hughes. Earlier this year, Jack Hughes. But when he hits York, I heard that. And it was legal. No one could complain like the Simple got fit that it wasn't legal. And it just set the tone. And talking to Wall after the game, he pretty much said, they right from the get-go, they wanted to be physical. So we have to match that. And we'll get into the physicality later, but one of the biggest things for this Islanders on this 4-game win streak, they're hitting everything. I'm shocked they're not even hitting their own teammates.
You pointed it out last show that these guys are playing more physical. Now, I wonder, was this the game plan all along? All of a sudden January is going to come, we're going to start laying the body? Or did they just say, okay, let's give this a shot?
Yeah, it's jacked up January. No, I don't
nice.
know. I think you just get to the point where you realize what works and what doesn't. And I'm not going to go back. I'm not Eric Hornick. But in the games where they've out-hit their opponents, usually with hitting, it's you don't have the puck. But the Islanders are dominating puck possession and hitting. So it's about the forecheck. All the hits are coming in that. Most of them are coming in the offense zone. You have the big ones in the D zone, but they're just establishing the forecheck early, finishing those hits. And you got guys like Gatcomb, who might have been the guy. Gatcomb might be the McLean of the Fashings. Okay. Do you understand what I'm going with there?
Yes, I follow.
Fashion comes up, can't come out of the lineup, sparks the team, makes the playoffs.
Right.
McLean comes up with a Zizekas injury, sparks the team, makes the playoffs. Gatcomb's come up, the bottom 6 have gone like that. Clicked.
And we know what comes next.
They're winning, so they're obviously making the playoffs this year. But the real thing is you're getting a bottom 6 that Walk and trust. So now he's running all 4 lines, which has allowed Barzal and Horvat to thrive. Nelson's getting hot. So you're seeing these team efforts time and time again. It's a streak, yes, but the way they're playing, they're all bought in, and they should have all been bought in from day one.
Yeah.
But I think there's one thing to buy into what Wild wants, but you're not getting the results. And now when you're getting the results, everybody's hitting. It's not just Gatcomb or Zizekas.
Right.
Pajot's hitting. All
Engvall.
The defense. Engvall is hitting.
Pierre.
And he's getting feisty with the Flyers game again. So I think the Flyers game was one of those games where, they go down early, but they rallied, and then that brings us to last night where they do it again.
Yes, they do it again. Another come from behind, because another thing they've been doing, I think it's 31 out of all their games so far. They've given up the first goal. They do it again last night against Carolina. Then they give up an unfortunate second goal, which was just bad luck. Down 2-0, they rally to beat the Carolina Hurricanes in overtime. Didn't see it coming, and here we are, 4-game winning streak.
They allowed one shot on goal, I think, in the final 16:09 of the second.
How about that?
This is a Carolina Hurricanes team that shoots from everywhere.
Correct.
I think the Pajot line in the entire game held them to 3 shots on goal.
How about that?
Again, bottom 6 working out. But for Carolina, I mean, you get big goal by Anders Lee late.
Yeah, huge.
Big goal. And that's where I'll throw my experience points in here.
Okay.
I mean, he had 20 goals last year in 81 games. He has 21 already this year.
Yeah,
he can hit 40.
He is reborn. He is reborn. I don't know if he started eating his Wheaties this past summer or what.
Well, he worked with Adam Oates. And
you did mention that.
And he changed his stick.
The stick.
And I think, obviously, getting results early in the year. Last year, he wasn't getting those results. Getting them early this year, you build confidence. But it was one of those vintage games. It was vintage Anders Lee, even though he's done it all year. Vintage Brock Nelson in overtime.
Right.
Vintage Islanders losing a defenseman early, which we'll get to in a second. Vintage Adam Pelech breaking up odd man rushes and doing his thing. So this was, and then they come from behind. So that's a vintage Islanders win.
Yeah, it's just, where was this all season? That's the question, right? Why do you wait till January to get this stuff going? And now, just as I was starting to write the eulogy for the team earlier in the week, saying how basically, impossible, this near impossible the situation looks when they climb back in, just because they have all those teams ahead of them. You got these teams collecting points, playing each other every night. Like, they have to just collect points by default in that way, right? And now here we are, 7 wins out of 10 games, 4 in a row against some formidable teams here, and another test coming up. We'll cover that on What's on Tap. But now we're in a situation where they're still in the mix. They have some games in hand. Everybody was quick to remind me of the games in hand, but they're still in it now. It's 6 points, but it's still such a tough hill to climb.
They're still in it, and they're still going for it. Now
that's clear.
We'll talk about Tony DeAngelo. Obviously, it's elephant in the room. We do want to get our interview in a couple of minutes, but just want to do injury updates first, because DeAngelo comes in, plays well to fill the Dobson hole, but then 15 seconds into the game, Ryan Pulock goes down. Looking at the replay from different angles, he goes down awkwardly, falls on his shoulder. Jason Blake's son, slew foot.
Right.
Back-to-back games, the Islanders had slew foots, by the way. The game before that, Mayfield got slew footed. He left the game and came back. So imagine they had lost Dobson, then Mayfield Friday, then Pulock Saturday. So Pulock leaves the game, doesn't return. And then Hogberg in the third period, he takes a shot, and I don't know if the puck hit him in the hand or he got slashed, but the stick was right in front of him, and the teammates were kicking it to him, and he just couldn't pick it up. And you're wondering, all right, something happened with his hand. Game's going on, and then overtime begins, and he leaves. And talking to Wah after the game, by the way, Sokin gets the win, not the shutout.
Right.
Sucks for Hogberg. He's been great.
Right.
I know you're going to get to him in a little bit.
Yeah.
But Wah pretty much said that it just kept getting worse and worse. So you got to think, whatever happened to his hand, pain in the moment, but you said, all right, I'm just going to battle through. I'm going to guess it swelled up on him. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, the Honors, Hogberg was an emergency recall. So they're still on that emergency recall thing if they have to call up Skarik or Tykonen. But sticky situation now with the Islanders needing all these wins. You have Sorokin healthy, playing pretty well.
Right.
What do you do? But yeah, I mean, the Islanders, 4 wins in a row. They've lost players, but again, they've found ways to overcome it. All these hits, they keep getting knocked down, but they keep hitting back, literally and figuratively. So we'll see what happens. Carolina Hurricanes are a tough team to come back from, especially if they get Rantanen and Hall. And I thought Rantanen was a monster in the third period. The Hurricanes did miss the net a lot, but the Islanders played a really strong game. Like I said, where was this all season? And can he's the key. He's the key. But look, maybe they can keep it going. That's the question now, right? I mean, now it's kind of just step by step, right? Like, okay, this is the next hurdle that they just cleared. Can they do it? Can they do it again with Colorado coming to town to close out the homestand, right? And there's only so many games between now and that kind of artificial cutoff at the Four Nations face-off, where we all seem to think that's like where they're going to decide whether they're going to sell or not, right? Probably not. Well, that leads into the next topic of conversation is Dobson goes down, in comes Tony DeAngelo. To me, that's a clear sign that the Islanders are obviously not throwing in the towel, and they're trying to make the playoffs. And this is even before the wins this weekend, which is wild to me, right? Because, again, I was ready to say, look, guys, you gave it your best, but it's not going to work out. In comes Tony DeAngelo, obviously a very hot topic here, obviously a controversial figure. I didn't see the guy coming back into the league, let alone the New York Islanders. So I was taken by surprise. In fact, it was your tweet that I saw first, and I had to check, probably double, triple check to make sure it wasn't like a double, triple check phony the text account that I got from the team that said, because I was like,
I was like, this could be a fake account, And I looked and I was like, no, that's Stefen. This happened. So
you did tweet that.
I had to wrap my head around it. And look, if I'm being completely honest, I was disappointed by it. And, I'm not going to get into all the, the politics behind it and all that stuff. But if we're even just going to throw that to the side and whatever kind of human being this guy is, you want to talk about it in a hockey sense, he is obviously a locker room problem. He has been in the past. We'll say that, right? Maybe he's not now. Maybe he's redeemed. Yeah. But he's had his issues. We saw what happened with him and Georgiev in New York. There's word going around that he had other issues in other locker rooms. I'm not going to claim whether they're true or not.
That's the problem. We'll get to, but yeah.
And you have what supposedly happened just in the KHL,
yeah.
Right? And supposedly they ran him out of there. So, I mean, to my surprise, now he's going to come and play for the Islanders, and this is a team that's apparently still trying to make the playoffs, and whatever rumors may or may not be true about him, you're going to put that into their locker room, and you're going to have that, potential grenade blow it up there, So you look at that, you have to think to yourself, all right, and I kind of compare it to now two very different situations, but at the same time, I compare it to the Robin Lehner signing that summer, right? Kind of similar in the sense that he had addiction problems, he had locker room issues, it was for different reasons. But a guy who you bring in and you say to yourself, wow, what's this guy going to do, right? And sure, the fans fall in love with him, the team falls in love with him. He has a great season. I don't know if the Tony DeAngelo situation is going to go the same way and he's going to end up with a tattoo of Long Island on his neck. Yeah. But here we are. He's getting paid to play hockey, and the bottom line is he's making minimum. If he's a problem, they can cast him off immediately.
All your points are factual, except what you mentioned, though, is it's so hard because social media is the worst thing with this, is we don't know what's true. Mm-hmm. We've heard stories. He's been suspended in the OHL before for breaking their harassment rules. He had issues with Georgiev. There was rumors he had issues with Keandre Miller, which were debunked by a story in the Post per like 20 people that were sourced in that. And then we don't know what happened in the KHL because Russian media, we have no idea. Right. So it's tough. And what I'll say, there's a lot of fans that were really upset, and I don't blame them. It's
understandable.
A controversial figure that he's very outgoing about his politics, which, again, you have a lot of the league probably feels the same way politically that he does, but he's the one that's putting it on social media. Fun fact, he hasn't tweeted since the Islanders signed him.
And he won't.
But I think you have to look at it as, for people that are worried about the locker room and what he's done, there's no way Lou Lamoriello looked at this guy quickly and was like, oh, we need a Dobson fill, and like, forget what he's done, bring him in. I guarantee that Lou sat him down, not that he read him the riot act, but was like, here's the deal.
Right.
You want to be back in the NHL.
Right.
Like you said with Leonard, we're going to give you that chance to continue your career. But here's a list of things you have to do. Here's a list of things you cannot do. And if you do any of these things, you're gone. Play hockey, play your game, keep the BS to a minimum. And at the end of the day, I don't want to say his past doesn't matter and just play hockey, because that's what's wrong with hockey culture.
Right.
But I don't think Lou, if he believes in this team going forward and he values this locker room chemistry and culture so much, he's built it up since he got here in 2018.
Right.
I don't think just in the off chance he gets a guy that could be good, could be bad, that he's going to throw this guy into the locker room and be like, well, he has issues with players X, Y, Z around the league. Like, F it. Like, Lou's not going to do that. So for people that are nervous about the locker room, one, it's a really strong locker room where if a guy came in and acted like a, you know what, they're not going to tolerate it. But number two, I don't really think Lou is bringing a guy in. Before we get to the interview here, I just want to play a clip. We spoke to Tony DeAngelo after his game, Ed. And, we talked to him after the game about signing with the Islanders.
All right, so while we wait for the quote, listen, I understand why people aren't happy about it. Like I said, I wasn't thrilled when it came out. I had a very pointed tweet when it came out. Is the quote ready? Yeah. All right, go for it.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, to be honest, it's real grateful for the opportunity. Obviously, I was 2 weeks ago, NHL career looked pretty bleak. So, I wouldn't say I took it for granted when I was here, but to get another opportunity back, it's you can't ask for much more. So hopefully, I take advantage of it.
What was it like to face your former team out there?
Yeah, no communication really with those guys today. I'll talk to them in a couple minutes, but I was focused in trying to do whatever we could do to win. It was a big win for us.
So DeAngelo after the game is obviously not going to talk about everything that we're bringing up, especially in his scrum.
Right.
Ideally, at some point this week, I hope to talk to him about everything that's gone on to get, just his mindset of all of that. But you mentioned it, I mentioned it. This is a guy that's coming here to play hockey. He's getting a huge opportunity. He's got to prove that he's He's got to prove that, one, he can help this team, and two, that he's not going to do extracurricular stuff that's going to blow his chance. So there's a lot of pressure on him if he wants to continue his NHL career. So get people being upset. At the same time, let's see how he is. If he's a bad person, he's a bad person, but let's get to know him and see if he's changed. Who knows if he's changed at all? Again, second, third, fourth chances. We don't know. That's the fact. We don't know enough about the situation. Let's see who he is. Maybe he's changed. Maybe he realized after leaving the NHL that, hey, I have to be a better human being, better person, X, Y, and Z. So time will tell. It's up to him to really prove that to us because he's obviously on one side right now. He's got to convince people, but that's up to him. As long as he kind of helps the Islanders win these games and stay in the race and keeps the other stuff to a minimum, I think Islander fans should give him a chance. That being said, if one thing happens and you want to be like, we're done with him, then you're done. Like you said, he's on a 1-year prorated deal. They could waive him. They could even trade him at the deadline. So let's see what happens. Let's see how he acts while being here. And let's see if he has changed.
We will see, but that's going to do it for Experience Points because we got to go to break. We got to go to On the Line. So once again, that'll do it for Experience Points presented by Main Street Board Game Cafe. Unplug your game and raise your experience at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. And for me, Experience Points plus 10,000 to Romanov for that big blast at the beginning of the game.
2,700 for me for Lee. So.
All right. So we're going to go to break, and then we're coming back to On the Line.
Islanders fans, Sunday night is hockey night in New York. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, tune in to Hockey Night in New York. Catch us live from Floyd Media in Rockville Center, Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, as we cover all things Islanders at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. All episodes are also available on YouTube and all your favorite podcast providers. And for all you social butterflies, you can follow at HockeyNightNY on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for all the latest updates. Hockey Night in New York. The best night of the week for any Islanders fan.
Attention all artists, storytellers, and creators of all kinds. It's time to make your content stand out above the rest. And Floyd Media is the place to make your visions become a reality. Maybe you want to elevate your podcast and add some video, or turn that novel you wrote into an audiobook. Or maybe you just need the right space to produce your daily vlog. Whether you're a seasoned veteran or just starting out, Floyd Media has the professional facilities, exceptional staff, and intimate atmosphere to breathe life into your creative passions at every step of the process.
Did you have a nice break? Well, it's time to get back on the couch for more Islanders therapy on Hockey Night in New York.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen, to Hockey Night in New York. It is time for On the Line, presented by Tovi Hockey, the innovative hockey technology company. And joining us right now on the line is Evan Rawal of the Denver Gazette. Evan, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
We're doing all right. Big news over there in Colorado. Huge trade. Got to start off right with that. A couple of games already in the books for those fellas. Why don't you just talk about the gravity of that trade, what led to it, and how this is going to affect the Colorado Avalanche going forward?
It's been a crazy 48 hours. I was settling in Boston for a chill night, and it got unchill real fast. So it's not just like any trade. Like, this is one of the greatest players that's ever put on an Avs jersey getting traded. And it kind of came out of nowhere. Like, everyone knew about the contract situation. Like, that wasn't a surprise. But, like, the fact that they were able to pull the trigger so quickly, like, the trade deadline is still six weeks away. So that's kind of the shocking part of it all, is that it just all came together so quick. And it is a huge deal. Like, this is a guy who's been here for 10 years. He's the longest tenured guy here outside of Nathan MacKinnon. And it hurt. Like, talking to those guys in the locker room yesterday, they were hurting. Like, this is not only just a great teammate, but a great friend and a great player. So it's been a crazy 48 hours. And surprisingly, like, as much as they were hurt and like they were talking around, they were honest, they've come out and played pretty well for 2 games. So, like, that's just a sign of a mature team and a team that's won before, that they're able to put that aside and put it together on the ice. So credit to them for that, but it's going to be a very different team moving forward.
What's up, Evan? Thanks for joining us again. Just with Marty Necas, obviously he was having a fantastic year in Carolina. Just through 2 games, what have you seen from him, and do you expect really greatness with MacKinnon and him on the same line?
Well, we saw flashes of it that first game, but I mean, obviously they hadn't played together before, so it was kind of, they were off. They just hadn't played together. Today they were awesome. Like against the Rangers, they were just fantastic together. And it is a very different type of player than what Nate has been playing with Mikko. Whereas Mikko's strength, skill, he's got the great shot. Necas' speed. Like it's just nonstop skating. And with Nate, that could work really well, but it's an adjustment because Nate's never played with a right wing that shoots right. He's used to that guy with the one-timer on that side. So he told me today that he's going to have to adjust to that. And he's an elite player. He'll adjust to it. But so far, so good. Necas was awesome today. He could have had a couple goals. He hit the post twice on one power play. I think listen, if you go play with Nate McKinnon, there's no better situation unless you're playing with Connor McDavid. So this is a huge moment for him. And the other thing, like when you play for the Avs and you play with Nathan McKinnon, you're going to play a lot. His first game with the Avs, he played 25 minutes. Like he's going to get an opportunity to really have his career just take off. And if he can keep up with Nate, and keeping up with Nate's not easy, then he's going to be like, this could be a big moment for him essentially.
And Evan, just looking at the trade as a whole here, you talked about what Rantanen meant to the franchise and to the team. How is the mood in Colorado? The fans, how do they feel about the trade? Just do they feel like they got a good enough return for him? Are they pleased with it, and are they excited about going forward with Necas in there? And Drury,
well, I think some, like there's people that are obviously, a lot of people are upset. Like you trade a franchise guy like that, then people are going to be upset. It's someone that they're used to. And the shock of it all just adds to all that. But, there's also a subset of those people that were like, well, you can't pay Nate 12.65 or whatever he's making and then pay Mikko 13.5 and then suddenly expect to put together an entire team that's going to be able to keep up. Right. So there is a subset of people that understand, like, hey, like this team is top heavy. Like they need to spread it out. And I think if you're Chris MacFarland, you go into any trade with Mikko Rantanen and you just expect we're probably going to lose this trade. Like we're not getting a Mikko Rantanen back. And any GM would say that. But all things considered, like, do I think they're a better team today than they were 3 days ago? No, I don't. But Martin Necas is a good player. Like that's probably as good a player as they were going to be able to find. Like when you compare this deal to like, say, Jake Gensel trade last year, where Pittsburgh got like a mid, like a third line player, essentially, Michael Bunting, and then a bunch of scraps. Like I'll take Martin Necas any day of the week over that. So all things considered, they did well, and I don't think they're done, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, it opens up the hole for a guy like Brock Nelson to go there. But
right.
Rantanen leaves. He leaves a letter, and they give it to former Islander Devon Taves. Now, you've dealt with Devon this year. Just in terms of his leadership-wise, we only get to see him obviously on the ice in a couple interviews, but how has he been in the room?
He's awesome. He is one of the most honest guys that you'll find in that locker room. Like he just says it like it is. Like there was last year, they had the situation where they brought in a bunch of new guys, and he basically just called them out in the media. He's like, hey, we got a bunch of guys who think they're playing well, and they're not. So like he is a very honest guy, and he is a huge part of this team. Him getting the A was just like the most obvious thing in the world. Like we all knew it was going to happen. We knew he was a big part of the locker room. So, but like he's had a rough year. Like he's been hurt most of the year, and he's been playing through it, and he's now finally healthy. And it's not a surprise that the Avs been playing better once he got healthy. But he's just such a huge part of the team and the leadership group, and I'm happy that he got a name. Maybe it means he'll talk to us. He doesn't always talk to the media, and he's so good with the media. So I'm hoping that he talks to us more. But like, yeah, he's just a huge part of this leadership group, and he's going to take on a big load here with Mikko gone as far as the leadership group goes.
And Evan, there's another old friend from Long Island that's hanging around the blue line over there, Calvin DeHaan. Maybe not as integral to the Avalanche as Devon Taves, but I saw that he's gotten into 37 games. How's he doing over there?
He has been a healthy scratch a lot lately. Yeah. So I think it's playing for the Avs and playing defense is not easy. Like because you have to be up in the play a lot, and you got to be able to skate. And I think that his limitations have started to show as he's got. I mean, he's not 25 anymore. He's older. He's had a lot of injuries in his career. So honestly, when he's been in, he's been serviceable. It's just that the Avs like to play a specific way, and I'm not 100% sure that he is a complete perfect fit for how the Avs like to play.
With goaltending, obviously the Avalanche made some big changes in goal. What was it, a month ago at this point? But getting Mackenzie Blackwood, I know the stats might not be amazing, but just what is your take on the way he's played and really solidified the goalie position for them?
I know Chris McFarland, he said it yesterday. He's like, well, it's hard to make trades. It's like, well, you've made like 3 in a month and a half, and they've all been pretty big, so it can't be that hard. But Blackwood has been, I mean, his game, he was a 940 save percentage goalie for a month, and it's like, well, that's going to teeter off. Otherwise, he's the best goalie ever. So it has fallen off a little bit. Like today, he was great, but he still gave up 4 goals. But he's just been awesome. Like their goaltending was just so bad for 2 months. It just really was costing them games. And what's happened is he's become in and he's been so good. Like other weaknesses on the team have started to show. But that's why you go out and you get a great goalie, like to cover up some of those weaknesses. And now they know what those weaknesses are, and they don't have to worry about goaltending. And they can go maybe fix a spot where it's maybe easier to go get somebody like a depth defenseman as opposed to a starting goaltender, which is very hard to find.
Yeah, so earlier you said that you don't necessarily think that the Avalanche are done dealing here. So where do you think they're looking? Where do they need to plug holes to make them ready to contend for another cup?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you mentioned Brock Nelson. I saw Elliot Friedman mention him with the Avs the other day too, and that does make sense. The Avs, Casey Middlestat has struggled for about a couple months. He's starting to show signs of life here recently, but even then, like they picked up Jack Drury in this trade with Rantanen, but I don't think he's necessarily a third line center. I think they would love somebody maybe a little bit more stable behind Nathan McKinnon that they can put there. And Brock Nelson might be that guy. It wouldn't surprise me if the Avs are sniffing around like JT Miller or somebody like that. That's a big move right there, and they might not have the assets for it, but the Avs are in on everything. They're always doing that. And then beyond that, like they need a defenseman. Like I mentioned, Calvin DeHaan's been a scratch. Beyond the top 4, it's a little iffy. Like they do need a defenseman. Their top 4 all played more than 23 minutes today, whereas their third pair just barely played. That's just not going to work in the playoffs. They need to find another defenseman that can kind of take the load off of Taves and Makar, who are going to be going to 4 nations, and they're not going to really get a break. So they need to find another defenseman that can kind of help them down the stretch, because you can't just win a Stanley Cup with 4 defensemen. You
mentioned defenseman. That segues right to my question. Watching Cale Makar on TV is pretty cool. I'm imagining watching him in person. It's, I guess, like watching McKinnon on offense. I mean, what can Makar not do?
I don't know. We are spoiled. We are very spoiled here, where we can watch McKinnon and Makar do their thing. Because, like, just today, like at MSG, Makar just shimmies somebody at the blue line, and they're gone. And you can just hear the oohs from everybody in the crowd, like, yeah. And I'm just like, yeah, he does that like every game. Like, we're just used to seeing that. He's just so good. He's a special player, and he's also just super humble. Like, he's the type of guy who's just like today he said he had 3 points. He could have had a hat trick. His third goal was just disallowed, but he was like, yeah, we were great, but I missed Necas on 4 passes. Like, he could have had a lot more goals. Like, yeah, that's Cale Makar. Like, he just doesn't want to give himself credit. Like, he's superhuman, and to me, he's going to go down as one of the greatest defensemen. Him and Quinn Hughes are just super special. Like, these Avs and Canucks fans, like, they go crazy. Like, oh, this guy's better. Like, just enjoy watching. Right. It's 2 of the greatest defensemen you're going to see ever play. Like, they're just that good.
Absolutely. So, Evan, before we were planning to have you on here, I looked at the standings just to see where Colorado was, and I was surprised I didn't see them towards the top of that Central Division, and they're a little further down. They're tied for 3rd place right now. Can you maybe just tell us what kind of season the Avalanche have been having, maybe why they've, at least what I would say, maybe struggled to be towards the top of the division, and maybe just what Islander fans can expect on Tuesday night?
It has been a roller coaster. Like, that's the only way to describe it. So they've used 42 players already. Like, wow. They've dealt with injuries. They've dealt with suspensions. They still don't have their captain. I don't know if he's ever coming back really at this point. It's just been a roller coaster. Like, at the start of the season, it really was goaltending. They didn't have a lot of healthy guys at the start of the year, but they were still competing and in games. They just weren't getting any saves. But it's just been so up and down that it's been so hard to get a read on this team. And the Western Conference is basically like 7 really good teams, and the Avs are in that group. And then the rest is just, it's kind of like, it's like the bottom of the East, essentially. The teams that are fighting for that last wild card spot, like, whoever gets the top seed is probably pretty happy. But I'm not surprised that they're not in the top 3 in the Central, just because they've been so inconsistent. Like, you don't know what team you're getting on a night-to-night basis. Like, even inside of a game, like yesterday, they were great for 40 minutes, and last 20 minutes they were crap, and they lost the game. Like, the margin for error for this team is just a lot smaller than it was in previous years when they were just stacked with talent. Like, that's why they kind of made this trade, is because they're not deep enough. And now they're trying to build the rest of the team to where they don't just have to rely on McKinnon and McCarr to carry the team. So it's been a roller coaster, and on a night-to-night basis, you don't know what you're getting. But then you have these nights where it's like McKinnon and McCarr just carry them to victory because that's what they can do. So that's kind of why I don't think any team in the West really wants to play them in the playoffs, because you don't want to have to face Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar and deal with that for 7 games.
Yeah, you talk about what you just said, probably 50% of it, 60% of it, you could just take out the word Colorado Avalanche and put New York Islanders, because they've had so many injuries. But Evan, just want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. Really do appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. Anytime.
Absolutely. Thanks, Evan. Take care. All right, folks, that'll do it for On the Line. A big thanks to Evan for a great spot. Another tough game coming up Tuesday against the Avs.
They play better against good opponents. That's what it is. They drop what? They lose to Ottawa, and who else they lose to start the homestand? Philly, right?
Yes.
And it's all right. You lose to those even. Now they're just making it up.
I guess
they go
so.
and they sweep it back-to-back. By the way, they had now beaten Carolina twice in the last 2 home games.
Yeah.
They haven't beaten them, I don't think, in 2 consecutive home games since November of 2014.
How about that?
Or 18. I could be wrong. It's been a while. It's been a long time.
It's been a long time. Well, now why don't you tell us a little bit about Tovi Hockey?
Yes. Tovi Hockey, the innovative hockey technology company, is the creator of the 100% solid carbon fiber Diamond Air blade, the only other NHL-approved blade technology. With superior feel and increased swing speed due to its perforated design, unparalleled control thanks to the micro-grip blade texture, greater durability courtesy of its patented aerodynamic cross-beam construction, and unparalleled shooting accuracy thanks to its large sweet spot, Tovi Hockey is changing the game and making the next-gen stick of tomorrow available today. Go to ToviHockey.com to check out their great selection of sticks, gear, and apparel, and use promo code HNINY10 for 10% off your order. Tovi Hockey, stronger, faster, superior.
Stronger, faster, superior. Now we take another break, and when we come back, we're going to continue the show. We'll see you in a bit.
See what we talk about.
Islanders fans, Sunday night is hockey night in New York. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, tune in to Hockey Night in New York. Catch us live from Floyd Media in Rockville Center, Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, as we cover all things Islanders at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. All episodes are also available on YouTube and all your favorite podcast providers. And for all you social butterflies, you can follow at Hockey Night NY on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for all the latest updates. Hockey Night in New York, the best night of the week for any Islanders fan. Thanks for giving some time to our sponsors. Ready to talk more Isles? The train rolls on right here on Hockey Night in New York.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. The train rolls on right into Center Station in Rockville Center, the sponsor presenting What's on Tap. It's time to find out what's on tap, Stefen. And we got a full slate. Full slate of games coming up here. The Islanders will be closing out the homestand Tuesday against the Avs, who we were just talking about. Tough test, new blood, just like Carolina. They passed that test in dramatic fashion, and now here comes another one with Colorado.
Yeah, Colorado's coming off a huge win over the Rangers today. I mean, Rangers kind of messed their own game up by Panarin not back-checking, but stuff happens, It's hockey. But it's an Avalanche team that's emotionally driven right now. You heard after, Evan was talking about it, how McKinnon seemed so just distraught. He thought that Rantanen would be a lifelong Avs player. Head coach Bednar was a similar way. And Rantanen's such an important piece, and he played on the island the other day, hearing him talk. He was kind of shocked. So they need to prove to McFarland, their GM, let's not do that again. Rantanen's not gone because he was playing bad, but they needed that, hey, you guys weren't playing well enough with Rantanen here, to the point where we can't afford to spend money on Rantanen because we don't really trust the rest of our lineup could figure it out. That's a shot to your team, essentially. I'm not saying it's the first shot. The first shot is we can't afford to pay Rantanen if we want to have an actual team. But in theory, if the bottom 6 that they had under contract at minimum deals was playing much better, they probably could figure it out with Rantanen. It didn't happen. They're emotionally driven. They're not happy. They want to play better. You said it. They're not at the top of the division. And they're coming to the Islanders, a team that's really hot. So the Avs know what the Islanders are doing. Have to match it. Comes down to goaltending. We don't know which goalie we're going to see. Maybe it is Blackwood, but as Evan said, kind of the last couple of games, it's been wishy-washy, right? Mm-hmm. So if the Islanders do what you've been doing, shooting at will, generating rush chances. That's the other thing, too, with the Avalanche. Makar loves to jump in on the rush. Devon Taves jumps in. He talked about how they need more defensive defensemen, right? Gerard jumps in. All the Islanders have done in this 4-game win streak is just dismantle teams that have 5 guys join the rush. The amount of odd, and it starts with the Islanders breaking out cleanly, but the Islanders are generating off the rush, and this is an Avalanche team where the problem is catching them. Like, that's the biggest problem. But if you stifle them, they're all caught up the ice. So if the Islanders can find a way to continue that game and really establish their forward check, or in general just make those crisp passes, they're going to have a lot of chances of scoring Blackwood.
Hey, look, if they can keep the magic going from these last 4 games, anything is possible here.
True.
And it'd be really something to close out this homestand with a 5-game winning streak. That would really put a bow on it, and it would force us to continue to talk about this playoff race because, I mean, they are not letting it go. We'll see how long it lasts, but that's a big game. Colorado's going to be tough. And then we move on to Thursday. Homestand is over. They go into Philly for the 3rd time in January facing this team. Very familiar with them. What do you got there?
DeAngelo's going to get a tribute video.
Oh, God.
It's his return to Philly.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, we always talk about how one game builds up the other. If you beat the Avalanche, keep it going. You're going on the road.
Why not?
And you have a really tough weekend coming up after, which we'll get to. I'll be there. I'll be in Florida. But Philly is just one of those teams that the Islanders know their game. And they know it works. The first game against Philly, the Islanders lost, but they realized that, hey, they're going to try to play physical. They might get away from their game. So if you can capitalize while they're not playing hockey and they're just trying to hit people, you could win. Unfortunately, when the Islanders had the Siplikov incident, when we got the 3-game suspension, we'll get to him in a little bit too, the Flyers started just attacking Siplikov. And the Islanders didn't find a way to take advantage of that.
Right.
Then you have last game that they played where they get the win is Romanov leads the big hit. Flyers are chasing Romanov. And what do the Islanders do? They play their game and they win the hockey game. So going into Philly, it's keep playing physical, establish your game. That's the other thing. Don't let the Flyers are a really hardworking team under Torts. They might outwork a lot of teams. They might lack the talent to win games, but usually they're not losing because of effort or grit. But if the Islanders can continue what they're doing and just match them or overpower, like the Islanders beat the Flyers by beating them at their own game too. Flyers want to be physical, and the Islanders said, we'll be physical times 2 and just make you guys hate your lives the entire game. And that's what they did. So I think if the Islanders bring that physical element early, they'll be fine.
They'll be fine. We'll see. Time will tell. And then we move on to a very, very tough weekend. Islanders go down to Florida. They start in Tampa Bay Saturday for a 7 p.m. start. We know how good the Lightning is. What do you see there?
It's going to be a tough game. It's the Lightning are always tough, especially in their own building. The Islanders haven't had too much luck there. I think last year was the first time Brock Nelson... Wad did something last time. They got killed, by the way, so it didn't last long. But I think Brock Nelson played on the top line with Horvat and Suzuki. Some weird line combination, right? Well, now we know that Horvat and Barzal are never being separated ever again. I mean, I think that's become abundantly clear.
Thank you. Yeah.
But the Lightning are another team where they like to jump in on the rush. They have some talent. Jake Gensel's fast. No Steven Stamkos. Stay out of the box, even though there's, again, no Stamkos, but you got to stay out of the box against these top teams.
Absolutely.
As much as the PK, I know Jake's going to get to that in a little bit. PK's been brilliant. And if you get your power plays, you have DeAngelo here. These are the type of games, yes, you could dominate 5-on-5 against the weaker teams. When you're playing these elite teams and you get power play time, you got to find a way to at least get momentum to play to 5-on-5 because these teams are where they are because they're very good at 5-on-5. Yeah,
no doubt, and it doesn't get any easier on Sunday, 6 p.m. The Islanders play the Florida Panthers.
Hey, look, they just swept the back-to-back, right? Do it again.
Why not?
Right, why not? Anything's possible. I mean, Florida, Stanley Cup champs, right? That would be, I think, if the Islanders could find a way this week to go 2-1 or 1-1-1, whatever, that is such a pivotal game because not that it's a measuring stick. I mean, they're there for a reason, but proving to themselves that if they play the right way, they play the way they've been playing, they really can beat anybody. It's one thing to beat the Flyers, one thing to beat Carolina, who got new players. I mean, there's always excuses when the Islanders win, right? We talked about this last show. They can never get their full flowers for anything.
Right.
But you're getting on a groove. It goes from a win streak to maybe the Islanders have found their identity. And when you play a team like the Florida Panthers, who they're gritty. I mean, they're kind of what every team wants to be. They're gritty and they have talent. If the Islanders could find a way to go into that game with momentum, it's a streak for sure if they keep winning, but it's also like, hey, we can play this way.
Look, you talk about clearing the next hurdle. I mean, this is it. right? You have a successful run here at home. Hopefully they cap it off nicely against the Avs. But this is a tough week. At least 3 out of these 4 games are what you would consider Stanley Cup contending teams, right? And as you said, Philly's no slouch either. That's going to be a tough game in their building. So this is 4 huge games for them. And if they come out on the other side looking pretty good, 3 out of 4, maybe even like a 2-1-1 kind of situation, it keeps the playoff conversation going. We don't know what other teams are going to do between now and then, but I feel like they would still be treading at least the bottom of the water there to still be considered in the playoff race. And then all of a sudden you look at the next collection of games heading into 4 nations, and maybe, just maybe, they're still hanging on here.
Is treading at the bottom of the water drowning?
Yeah, I was hoping you didn't pick up on that. I was hoping that was just going to slide that one through.
I heard, and I was like, wait, I think they're dead.
Yeah, like it came out, and I was just like, I'm going to roll with this. I'm going to go with it. That's fine.
No one gets away with anything on this show. But no, you're not wrong. And they have games in hand, and games in hand only matter if you win them. We've gone down that road before, and it's going to be really hard to jump these teams. That being said, with the amount of games they have coming up, this is now the opportunity to start climbing.
Yeah.
Like, they kept themselves close. They're going to play a lot of hockey, and I think if they had lost yesterday in overtime, I'm not saying it's a good point. You want 2. I kind of would have called it a success, right? You keep the point streak going. You were down 2-0. You force overtime late. Like, if they had lost, I don't think it's one of those games where you're like, we played so bad, and like that's a bad loss. Like, that's probably a good win. But just the importance of closing out this road trip. I mean, the Avs are going to be tough. They're really good. They're a really good team. Marty Necas is usually played well against the Islanders. We've faced him. How many times have they seen this guy? Jack Drury, by the way, wearing Chris Drury's old number when he was with the Avs. Pretty cool. And he's the first guy in this trade to get the goal, which, of course, that's how hockey works. Right. It's just so important. Brock Nelson's been talking a lot from the beginning of this homestand, even after the 2 losses. Like, we have to take advantage of this homestand. We have no choice. And yesterday he goes, pretty much, he's like, see? We're doing that now, but it's one thing to close it with a loss and then go on the road and struggle. Like, close out at home. The fans, you've been giving the fans a show, holding opponents to 2 goals or fewer, and all 4 1 goal or fewer, and 3. It's just been so impressive. It really has been.
They're giving the fans a reason to come to the building.
They need that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you saw what Barzal may or may not have said a couple of games ago, and, well, this is the remedy. Win hockey games, and the fans will come.
I have some stats from this win streak. Do you want me to share them?
I would love that.
Yeah, cool. They're 4-0, outscoring their opponents 13-5. We talked about the hits, right? They have 149 hits over their last 4 games. That's the most in the NHL over this 4-game span by 21. Some teams don't get to 15 in a game.
Right.
No Stepakov on this entire stretch. And I asked Wah about it.
Okay.
And he pretty much said listen, we're winning. We're not going to change anything. That was before the game last night.
It's hard to argue with that.
Before the game last night, you think, okay, like, is Stepakov a better option in the lineup over an Engvall who has been physical? Gacom deserves to stay in there. You credit Gacom for all of this, because if Gacom had any type of bad game, Stepakov's coming in like that.
Right.
So you credit him. You credit the way that 6 played the bottom 6. And then after the game last night, it wasn't me that asked, someone else asked, and he just started I did ask. I'll take the credit. Not about Stepakov, though.
Are you sure?
I asked about what he's been seeing from the Pajot line, which I told you before it was elite last night and shutting down. He's like, yeah, Pajot's line's been great. The penalty kill's been great. Our bottom 6 grade. He goes, I know Stepakov wants to play, but, we're winning. So you look at Tuesday game, Stepakov's probably not playing in this game either. Again, would I not have Stepakov in the lineup? I know he went 10 games without a point before coming out for the suspension. I probably would go with him. Even on second or back-to-back, I might have gone with him too. But the reason why I'm sitting here and Patrick Waugh is sitting or standing behind an Islanders bench. We have more stats, though.
Oh, please.
Horvat. 5-game point streak, 3 goals, 2 assists. Brock Nelson, 3 goals, 2 assists. Barzal, 1 goal and 4 assists. The Romanov effect. I mean, he's probably been their best defenseman.
First goal, by the way.
First goal of the year. Adam Pelech, 4-game assist streak.
Hey.
First time in his NHL career he's done that. And he looks kind of back to the guy that he was. So over the Islanders' 4 straight wins, it really has been a 4-line, 3D pair effort. And goaltending.
And how do you argue with a winning formula, right?
Right. I get the not touching it. I just think Stepakov in the lineup makes them better.
He belongs in the lineup.
But at the same time, I mean, the problem is that they beat the Avs. Does he now not play in Thursday?
I would think that even if they beat the Avs Tuesday, they hit the road, he'll make a change.
But why?
I think he'll put him in.
If they keep
Fair
winning,
question.
If they win 4-1 or dominate, or even just like, how can you? The equation is if they win, the lineup stays the same.
Listen, you're right.
I don't know if I should be right. No, I don't. I just it's hard because Stepakov is so dynamic in what he can do, even if he's not getting the points. Like, I know Waugh's not looking well. He hasn't had points in 10 straight. We're not going to play him. That's obviously not the way Waugh operates. I think Waugh's just superstitious that, hey, we're finally getting on a roll here.
You see coaches do it all the time.
Right.
You go on a roll, and there may be that one guy who could or couldn't be in the lineup, but you keep things the way they are because they're winning games. Keep the formula going.
I'll ask you this. If Hogberg is out a while with whatever, maybe it's a broken hand, who knows? Who plays, like you have a back-to-back coming up. You have Skarek or Tykinen. Tykinen has not been the same since he got shelled in that preseason game. Bless his soul, because that was a tough game for him to play in, and he had played so well last year. He's really struggled. Skarek, you thought he had a really good preseason. You said, oh, this guy's really turned around, goes down to Bridgewater. And by the way, the team in front of him, both goalies, has not been good. They've allowed soft goals. A lot of the replays, you say, oh, you want those back? Mm-hmm. But are we looking at a situation like Varley hasn't skated with the team yet? Are you going back-to-back with Sokin in Florida?
Look, I certainly didn't expect to see what we've gotten so far out of Hogberg, and I definitely don't have expectations for those other two guys. I feel like you wrap that Tampa game up as quickly as you can. Put Sokin in the bed.
Is there a mercy rule? Yeah, play 2 games.
And the problem is it starts an hour earlier the next day. It's a 6 o'clock start. You don't get that 24 hours.
So do you start... All right, let's say the Islanders are going in. Let's say they beat Philly or whatever. And Sokin, I'm assuming Sorokin's playing the entire week.
Yeah.
You start Sokin in the first game against Tampa or second game against Florida? Usually the rule of thumb is that,
you play him against Tampa.
Okay,
if they're not playing in both games, you play him against Tampa. You try to get the 2 points from Tampa.
In the morning, I mean, he's played like 5 or 6 back-to-backs. He's been fine.
Right.
But the problem is he's getting into a rhythm now, which is good. He's played pretty well. But do you want him playing? You don't have an option,
I guess,
at this
such a
point.
shame. Just when it looked like they have a very viable backup option with Varlamov being out, now there's the potential for Hogberg being out for who knows how long.
Kincaid could have just stayed.
Kincaid,
Bodie Wild might have been getting an opportunity if he had just...
Maybe you can get in there, pal. No?
You want a mercy rule in that game for Tampa. I mean...
I'd watch. I'd pay to go to that game.
Yeah, stream that on the Gotham Sports app. Yeah.
Absolutely. So that will do it for What's on Tap, presented by Center Station Bar and Grill, located 279A Sunrise Highway in Rockville Center. Head on down there for live events, Islander games, karaoke, live music. They got it all. Comedy. They do it all over there.
They do, yeah.
Yeah, they do. So what's on tap? That's over. Now it's time to talk about heroes. There's that theme music. So it's time for Hero of the Week. Stefen, we usually start with you, and I'm going to keep that trend going.
Oh, why? Because they're winning?
Yes, exactly.
You can't go to you because...
Why mess with the formula?
You can't go to Silvercup. So Brock Nelson's my Hero of the Week. He does get the overtime goal. Vintage Brock Nelson. He's played well as of late. These last 8 games, he's got 10 points, 5 goals, 5 assists, 3 multi-point games over that span. And at the end of the day, whether the Islanders are selling or not, or winning and going to the playoffs, Brock Nelson's a huge part of that. And at the end of the day, you want his value to be as high as possible, to the point where teams are just throwing picks and prospects at you. I'm not saying Lou's going to sell. He told us that a couple weeks ago in Vegas.
Certainly don't look like it right now.
Right. That being said, the better Brock Nelson plays, just the better the situation for the Islanders. Either he plays really well, they keep him, and they go on this run. And I know fans rooting for the team to lose, which is such a loser mentality. I don't even want to get into that. But they don't want to see this. Or they want to see him do really well just to flip him. Mm-hmm. But if he's playing this well, like, this is huge for the Islanders and turning it around and getting into the playoffs. And say what you want about it, it's only a win-win for Brock Nelson heating up, especially going into the Four Nations.
Correct.
Like, I don't think at 33 or 34 he has anything to prove. It's not like he's 24 and never played against the league's best. Like, Brock Nelson's been in an All-Star game before.
Sure.
So I'm not looking at it as he's got to have a really good tournament or he's screwed. It does help, though, that if he's playing well up to that tournament, that he's at the top of his game, and then Lou could say, listen, he was struggling mightily before. Hey, that was the cost 3 weeks ago. Now he's playing like a top 10 center in this league. He can play the wing, play power plays, playing PK. Give me everything. And they have all the leverage.
He's gonna, if he gets dealt, he's gonna get a good return. I would be shocked if they don't get a good return for Brock Nelson. But we'll get there when it's time, I suppose, because right now apparently it's not.
It's not. But who is your hero, Sean?
My hero, we were speaking about him just before, Marcus Hogberg. Guy deserves a lot of credit. He has been excellent every time he has stepped in between the pipes. He gives up 2 goals last night, but one of them obviously completely out of his control, goes off of George's skate. And for me, that's just another 1 goal against game for him. 24 saves on 26 shots last night. And he's just been great. And again, if he's hurt, and if he's hurt for a while, it's such a shame because, there's been so much concern about Sokin kind of getting burnt out, right? Playing too many games. And we see another game of Hogberg. Every time he comes in, he kind of passes the test. Like, this guy looks good. Because, I said it maybe a couple of weeks ago when you made him your hero, and I was like, all right, great, but let's see what this guy can do.
Hypocrisy right now.
Right, absolutely. But in all fairness, we didn't know. Yeah. And some guys, they man the crease for a game or two. They look like a game breaker, and then they finally settle into who they really are. And then all of a sudden, they're coughing up goals, all over the place, right? That hasn't happened for him yet. So he looks legit. He looks really good. And it's a shame because he was kind of finding a groove, and I'm sure his confidence is through the roof right now. So it's definitely a setback. But I definitely have to give him credit just for how well he's been playing. 9.23 save percentage in the game last night, and I think he's really only given up a goal or two in most of the games he's played.
Yeah, outside of the first game against the Penguins, and they lost 3-2 in that one. Mm-hmm. We were out chilling watching that game, but he's just such a different goalie than Sokin, but in a good way. Mm-hmm. I think it helps when you have two different goalies where other team has to game plan. You can't just game plan for the same guy. Mm-hmm. We talked about it. Sokin, flexible, his lateral movement is so elite, but he plays a little small. And then you have Hogberg, who's a massive unit who relies on his, like against Carolina. I thought it was a great game for Hogberg to get into because they shoot from everywhere. And Sorokin's troubles at times has been the angles, right? Mm-hmm. Hogberg is so good on his angles and structure. Maybe he can't stop the backdoor play all the time, but he's not going to allow the struggling rebounds, and he's going to get square to those shots. Unfortunately, the shot yesterday, the Roslovic goal, it's an elite shot. Do you want that back? I could just hear Butch probably saying, like, just stand up. And because in theory, you just stand up, you stop that. It's a great shot. The George goal obviously goes off skate, but he's just so poised out there, and he's so calm. And that's what allowed Varley to have so much success here, is that not that they're scrambling every time Sorokin plays. When he's sharp and he's on his game, he's a top 5 goal in the league. But when he's off his game, you have the rebounds in front. It's a little more chaotic. But all Hogberg has done is just done his job. And that's what you hope to see from DeAngelo. And the guys that come in or Gatcomb. Gatcomb's not scoring 10 goals in whatever amount of games. He's going in, he's finishing in checks, and he's moving the needle for the next guy. That's all you want from the guys that come in, is help us get a win, not be the reason we lose. And they're doing that.
Absolutely. So, folks, there are your heroes, Brock Nelson and Marcus Hogberg. Hats off to them. Good little week for the team. And now I'm going to tell you about our pals, Isles Fix. Islanders Country, get your daily fix of Isles news, highlights, and analysis by subscribing to Isles Fix, the Monday through Friday Islanders newsletter sent directly to your inbox. Sign up for free or become a paid subscriber for added benefits at ilesfix.substack.com. And now we're going to mosey on over to the Snake Den.
Welcome to the Snake Den with Jake the Snake.
Dude has the best theme music on the show. It's time for the Snake Den. Jake the Snake, how we doing, pal?
Last night, I've actually seen the Islanders beat the Canes twice this year.
Look at
which
you.
Which is awesome, a little revenge.
Credit to you.
Yeah, a little revenge for the past couple seasons.
Credit to you for wearing that Giants shirt right now.
It's Bill's colors, just showing some support.
Is that right? That was the psychology behind that?
Yeah. My football team season's been over since September.
Yeah, sorry.
Since the first snap,
That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's your take. My bad.
Yes. So last week, I talked about the penalty kill, how good it's been. And yeah, it's
still good.
Still good. So last week,
big development.
Yeah, big development. Last week I talked about how they only gave up 2 goals in the month of January.
Yeah,
they've still only given up 2 goals.
Still 2. Okay.
So they've only given up 2 goals on 18 kills this month, which is the best, by far the best in the National Hockey League. It's at 89%. So compare that to what was it, like 62? Going into January,
it was 60-something, which is
historically
insane.
Bad.
Right.
It's nice to just be able to see an Islanders PK actually perform, and just like how it used to under Trotz back in the day.
Yeah, it's weird how they're just figuring a lot of things out here in January. Did you happen? Don't mean to put you on the spot, but did you happen to catch what their overall percentage is now after this good run in January?
Yes, so they still are in the basement, but they're getting close. They're
treading water at the bottom of the ocean.
They are, yeah. I think it's around 68.5, which is 32nd in the league.
You know what that rounds up to, Jay?
But they're no longer on track to have the worst one ever, so we could give them kudos for that. I know we talked about not giving they don't get their flowers ever, but we should give them their flowers for what they've been able to do on the defensive end. Just really turning it around, and especially with how many guys are coming in and out of the lineup with injuries, bringing in new faces, and just still playing shutdown hockey this month has been a revelation for this team.
Small victories. We'll see where it goes from here.
You look at stats, and we talk about stats all the time, but reality is just game by game, what do the Islanders do, right? The stats are amazing in January. They have to keep it up. We talked about it months ago. If the Islanders are going to make the playoffs, and Thomas Hickey spoke about it, you got to have special teams. And at the end of the day, we always said, the power play gives you that advantage, but the power play was killing the team also, but the PK in big moments failing was just killing the team. And all the blown leads, we talked about before the show,
100%.
they haven't blown a lead since November. You mentioned that they've allowed the goals first, so if you don't have a lead, you can't blow it. But the penalty kill turning the corner and allowing just they're not taking a lot of penalties.
Right.
And that's allowing them to play more 5-on-5 where they've just excelled. I mean, they've outplayed every team lately at 5-on-5. That's good. And you're not putting pressure on the PK guys. It's just, and then you're not putting, the goaltending's been a lot better on the PK as well. Credit a lot of that to Hogberg too and Sokin. They're tightening up defensively on the PK as well. But it's just great to see one of the units because we know how bad it could be when both units are struggling. With one unit's going and now getting DeAngelo and hoping that, yes, the power play percentage at the end of the year is going to be terrible, but it's about what you do now. Can the power play go 1 for 5 in a game and you win by a goal? That's really what it comes down to. Can the power play be the difference maker? And if it can going forward with DeAngelo, great. And if DeAngelo doesn't help the power play, the Islanders are going to have a hard time getting into the playoffs because at one point or another against these really good teams, we mentioned it, against these Florida teams, you get a power play late in a tie game, got to find a way because that could be your last chance to win the game.
Right, especially with the power plays that those teams have.
Right.
You're going to have to try to find the balance there on special teams, no doubt about it. So, Jake, great take. And before we let you go, so to speak,
so they're back.
How are they going to do this week?
I'm going to go 2-1-1. I like that. I think you mentioned that before.
Yes.
I do think they're going to close it out with a win at home against the Avalanche. You still got guys getting accustomed to their new team. I know they did beat the Rangers today, which is always pretty cool to see.
Nobody hates that here.
I'll take a win in Philly.
Okay.
So there's their 2.
I think they're going to lose in regulation against the Lightning.
Okay.
I mean, that's just a team that they've struggled against. We know very well. And yeah, I think they scramble out a point over in Sunrise.
Jacob Skarek gets them a point in overtime or shootout on Sunday.
I think that's
or they'll pull them in overtime and put Sokin in.
They could. You know what they could do? They could just split both games.
And Mark Gackham gets his first goal.
Halfway mark.
The commercial break at the 10-minute mark of the second period.
You played youth ice hockey growing up. Every team had 2 goalies, and you split whenever, 10-minute mark, whenever the next whistle was, you had to swap. So they just,
Why not? Why not? Try new things.
I mean, Romanov could probably play goal.
We'll see what happens.
Let's not
Time will tell.
Yeah.
All right, so that's going to do it for the Snake Den. Before we go to one more break, I'm going to tell you a little more about our pals at Main Street Board Game Cafe in Huntington Village on Long Island's North Shore. Games for sale and for open play. Food and drink, beer and wine, fun and friends. Bring the magic of phones down, eyes up, tabletop board games to your family. Our staff will help you find the right game from old favorites to the hottest new releases. We have everything from strategic to easy party games. Get off your screens for a night your family will remember. Looking for meetups to join? Our Magic the Gathering, Dungeons & Dragons, Lorcana, and organized play communities are welcoming for all. We also do parties and corporate events located at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. Go to mainstboardgamecafe.com for more information. Main Street Board Game Cafe. Find your crowd. Unplug your game. We're going to take one more break. Then we're going to Questions Brewing, and we're bringing in our pal Jack.
Islanders fans, Sunday night is hockey night in New York. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, tune in to Hockey Night in New York. Catch us live from Floyd Media in Rockville Center, Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, as we cover all things Islanders at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. All episodes are also available on YouTube and all your favorite podcast providers. And for all you social butterflies, you can follow at Hockey Night NY on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for all the latest updates. Hockey Night in New York, the best night of the week for any Islanders fan. It's time for Questions Brewing. So go ahead, ask us a question.
That's right. It's time for Questions Brewing, a special edition of Questions Brewing, because we got Jack, our pal from Patreon, coming in here to Floyd Media in Rockville Center. He is going to start us off, but I want to ask real quick, Ed, how are you doing and how's Jay doing?
I'm doing great. Jay's doing great. He's happy Jay today.
Is he?
He's been getting.
Are we sure?
Yeah.
Yeah, look at that smile.
Just you can't wipe it off. Yeah, he looks great. All right, so Jack, a pleasure to have you here. What do you got for us, buddy?
So, I got 2 questions that I've built up.
No.
Go for it.
First one I'm going to pivot on a little bit since you kind of talked about it earlier on.
Okay.
Guy like Tony DeAngelo.
Yeah.
Fiery personality.
Sure.
definitely had the conversation with Lou that, hey, toe the line. You're going to end up with a horse head in your bed like the Godfather if you don't. Right. How does the room keep a guy like that in line? Do they need to? You, Stefen, you know the room. How would they go about doing that? I never played hockey, so I'm just curious.
Yeah. I think it's all going to be about respect. DeAngelo has a pass. No one in the locker room isn't aware of things, whether they heard the rumors or not. Like Pajot was pretty honest the other day. We asked about DeAngelo, and he said, I've heard good things, but I don't know him. I don't know him at all, so I can't really talk about him because I don't know him enough. So I think for DeAngelo, he's just have to come in there and respect him. He's coming into a room. It's so much different if this is a guy that was already there and other players coming in. It's been such a really close-knit room that I don't think, one, he would ever come in there and try to do anything to break it up. And number two, they're not even thinking about him coming in there and breaking up. He's coming in there to play hockey, do a role, and fit in. And if the Islanders are winning and he does what he has to do in the room, I think he'll be fine. Like I said before, I really don't think Lou was ever going to bring in a guy that he thought would destroy the room, right? So I think Anders Lee and the leaders in there have a job to do. Not that, hey, just in case he does something, let's be ready to jump him. But in the sense of like, hey, Tony, you have any questions about anything? Come talk to us. Anyone in the room, obviously, if something happens, please let us know. But like, basically, like they're not looking at this guy. This guy, bad guy's coming in. We got to be babysitters. But I think the room is strong, and it's more of like, hey, you're coming into our room. You have to act a certain way.
If Tony DeAngelo is smart, he will manage himself.
Right.
He will manage himself and be on his best behavior because he knows that he will be gone if he doesn't. And obviously we'll find out, right? We'll find out if he is on his quote unquote best behavior, right? And he's getting along with the guys and doing what he has to do. Because that should be his mentality. Just shut his mouth, play hockey, earn that NHL check, and see where it takes his career from there. Because I think, again, I said at the top of the show, kind of surprised that the guy's even back in the league, right? So he's here. So if he's smart, he'll manage himself. And I know you got another one for us.
Not a lot of people get second chances in the league.
There you
don't
go.
Go to the KHL and come back.
Right.
Second one, obviously with the injury to Hogberg now, it's going to be a little skewed. But with his play, do the Islanders decide to keep three consistent goaltenders? Does management decide to keep three consistent goaltenders that they can rely on because of the kind of injuries that are happening every season with our goaltenders? Or is there going to be kind of a fight for that 1B spot between Varley and Hogberg, seeing as, Hogberg's on a much cheaper deal?
Yeah, it's a great question. Hogberg being signed for another year is so big for this whole. It makes this more complicated. One, it helps the Islanders because if Hogberg, let's say, finished the rest of the year and played well, he's getting a contract somewhere. Mm-hmm. He's proven it, and it's going to be more than $775,000. Number two, the Islanders, I don't think they're going to carry three. One, they're always in trouble cap-wise, and they have to sign Dobson and Romanov and all these Siplikov, Holmstrom, and maybe they'll lose Nelson and Palmieri. That'll help, but your goalies right now with Varley and Sokin is $11 million. It's a lot for two goalies, especially if one of them is going to be your clear-cut number one. You don't need to have that's too much. Now, 8.2, so 9, a little over 9 is definitely more ideal, and I think what happens, we'll see if Varlamov's even able to return. We have no idea what the injury is. We were given a timeline. He's not back from that timeline. I don't know if he's ever going to be back. I don't know. We haven't seen him. And maybe he's done this year. He's older. If it is a lower body injury and it takes him a while we saw Corey Schneider try to work his way back from a lower body injury. His was different. I think it was hip. But it's tough for goalies to come back, especially older goalies, if it's a knee or a leg, right? So I don't know if he'll be here, Varley. And the other thing, too, is that he has a full no trade. If he comes back healthy, it makes financial sense for the Islanders to move him, but we know how much he means to the Islanders and Sokin. So it's a tough ask. That being said, I think what's best for the team is that they do move Varlamov to a contender or another team that needs a goalie, and they keep Hogberg because Hogberg proving that he could easily be a backup in this league.
And one more way that this could go, if Varlamov's injury is long-term and perhaps career-threatening or just because he's at the tail end of his career, I could certainly see a situation where he ends up in the LTIR to start the season next year. And then Hogberg is just your de facto backup at that point.
Like right now, Hogberg's on an emergency recall. So he's not even counting against the cap. So having three goalies is tough, especially when it's one thing if you're going to rotate all three. When you have a clear-cut number one guy, you shouldn't have two guys that are fighting for the backup job. And Hogberg's played, and your best ability is availability, right? So, and obviously, if he hurt his hand, that's it hurts that. I think Hogberg has done everything to make that a really hard conversation for Lou in terms of what he wants to do with his goaltending.
And not only do you get Hogberg as the potentially better at this point, and also much cheaper option, you get that cap space with the LTIR. So it could work out really well for the Islanders, depending on how it all goes.
Yeah, great question, man.
Yeah. Yes, thank you, Jack. And now we move on to the chat.
Yeah,
Ed,
chat.
How's it going?
They're here.
Great.
They're
All
here.
right. What do you got for us?
I guess we're going to start off with just one more DeAngelo question. I guess we'll kind of put this to bed.
Sure.
After this. And Zeb is confused. He says, can someone explain why the outcry when the Isle signed DeAngelo? All I read or was told was that he punched his goalie and maybe said some crazy things. Nothing concrete on either.
Well,
he definitely punched his goalie. Yeah,
Okay.
That's pretty concrete. That being said, I wasn't in the room when that happened, but per articles, it sounds like a lot of people backed DeAngelo in that situation in terms of Rangers and sources. I think it was in a Larry Brooks story. So we also know Georgiev is kind of a little cocky guy. So, I mean, I'm a goalie. I don't want anyone punching me in the face if I allow a bad goal. And he has said some crazy things. But outside of that, I think it's the politics and the outgoing. It's again, most of the league probably has similar viewpoints in the sense of just politics. Just not everyone's tweeting about it. And then social media is a cesspool for that stuff. So I think the biggest issue is a lot of people that don't agree with his politics can't separate the politics from the hockey player. Now, there's a lot of people that say, well, he's a terrible hockey player. He wasn't in the KHL because of his political beliefs. And I agree. I don't think he's terrible, but I don't think he wasn't blacklisted from the NHL. He struggled. He was a healthy scratch for Carolina at the end of it last year. But I think if he could play solid enough at 5-5, he helps the Islanders. So I think the fan base has a hard time separating the person and the player. I'm not saying they don't have, that's their opinion. They have their entitled to their opinions. And if you think this guy's a really, really bad guy, you don't want them on your team because then you have to root for them. But as for the hockey standpoint, it was a no-brain move with Dobson going down. Guys like this don't just appear. There wasn't really any other options, and he's been such a power play specialist that he really can help this team.
Yeah, I am not going to speak for the fans that have a problem with it. They have their own opinions and issues with it. I have my own as well. But at the end of the day, no matter how accurate or not it is, there is a history tied to this guy, right? Apparently racial slurs and stuff like that, right? I wasn't
that's the thing.
Right. Like listen, and if that's the case, and if it's true, I wouldn't want a guy like that on my team either. Yeah. Absolutely not. So I don't blame any of the fans for having those feelings. And like I said, I have some feelings of my own. And then you look at it as, is this a guy beyond redemption, right? Because I'm sure there was plenty, again, not the same thing, but plenty of skepticism with Leonard coming in, right? And he had to have his own conversation. And he had to prove to the Islanders and prove to Lou that he's a guy who could, be good in the locker room and be a contributing part to the team. Is Tony DeAngelo beyond redemption? I don't know, but they're giving him a shot. Hopefully he has learned from some of his past mistakes. If he did say or do some of those things that have happened in the past, maybe that's just him forevermore. I don't know, but he's here. He signed the contract. And at the very least, hopefully he can help this team out on the ice. And hopefully we do get a positive story. Hopefully things do go well. And hopefully he does end up being a good guy. I don't know if he is. I never spoke to the guy. But yeah, he's got a past. And I don't blame fans for having a problem with it.
And the last thing I will say is just when you're reading stories about people and you don't see it firsthand, I'm not saying they aren't true, but just take a lot of the stuff that was said, because there was a lot of stuff said about racial stuff. Keandre Miller with the Rangers. That never happened. I'm not saying anything else didn't.
Okay.
Like, Keandre Miller came out and said that was a complete made-up lie. I think it was like he threw his first NHL career goal in the stands and did something stupid like that. Was a lie. So we're in a day and age where you just put stuff on the internet and it could be true or false. I'm not saying it's not, but just be skeptical of things you read if it's not from the NHL or from the OHL, where it's like, hey, he was suspended for X, Y, and Z. Because I think he was suspended for harassment rules or policy that he broke, but the league wouldn't say what he said. So when people just assume he said racist words, we don't know what words.
Well, you wonder, are they protecting him because it was bad?
Are they protecting him, or does they never share what the word is? I don't know what was said. I'm not saying he's a good guy. I don't know him. So I think just be careful what you read online, because there's a lot of stuff that's out there that could be true, but a lot of stuff that could be false, and you're making your decisions based on maybe things that are just false.
Okay.
Put that to bed. We're done.
Yeah.
Moving on to Rick Rock. He says, I understand Wild doesn't want to change the current winning formula, but wouldn't Sippy coming in for Zeker or McLean be the next logical move? 7, 44, and 10 would be interesting.
So what I will say is that I agree with McLean. He struggled. Now you got to figure out your center iceman. You can put Cizikas back. But that third line with Holmstrom, Pajot, and Cizikas, you can't touch them right now. One, they're all playing on the PK really well. And two, they're just shutting down the opponent 5-on-5. Now, Siplikov on the fourth line, let's say you put Gacom in the middle and you did Pierre Engvall, Gacom, Siplikov. I mean, Siplikov's taken faceoffs and done well. That's a heavy fourth line. I think Siplikov with Engvall actually could work, because Siplikov doesn't play too fast in terms of skating, but I mean, he could hit Engvall up the wall for breakaway chances, and Engvall's been more physical. But again, you have the center ice issue. So I think Sibikov coming back in makes a lot of sense. I don't know if it's on the third line. If it's a fourth line role, I don't think that's an issue either.
Yeah, it's interesting now because of the health, right? Now that you have Duclair and you have Holmstrom in, and you're not going to touch the top line right now. You're not going to touch the second line. I mean, you could mess with the second line. I don't think they need to. And then it's like, okay, do you just throw him on the fourth line? I'd like to see him in a top six role. I'd like to see him getting more minutes than the fourth line. But as you said, third line's rolling. So right now it's just tough, and it's not going to roll forever. So maybe
someone's going to get hurt.
Or somebody will inevitably get hurt. But I think, we might see it for another game or two. But he's going to get back in.
Right.
He's too good to not be in the lineup.
Right, and especially if they're going to have DeAngelo on the point on the power play, him in front, what other unit he's playing on. For a time, like DeAngelo, I think played 154 of the 2 minutes of one of the power plays. Sibikov in front. I mean, we haven't seen him really be a factor at all since, preseason when he did the scarecrow stuff.
Right.
So DeAngelo's ability to read the ice and get shots through, like this is where Sibikov and him could really build chemistry.
Sure.
Yeah. Next up from Mr. Tom Boyle, he asks, do the Islanders have an enforcer in Bridgeport who can get called up? Teams are taking liberties at will.
That's a good question.
I don't think they have. Well, first off, there's like 20 guys that are injured in Bridgeport.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's bad.
Okay.
A lot of bad things going on over there.
Yeah, Bridgeport's under. They're trending. What was the water thing you said?
Treading the bottom of the water, I think it was.
Treading the bottom of water in Bridgeport.
Gonna trademark that. Thank you.
Cut the clip. Edit that out. Yeah. But I think for the Islanders, they don't need an enforcer. They're taking liberties. I mean, you look at the slew foots. And I think the one against Flyers with Mayfield was more like he really did it. I think Jackson Blake's trying to just get around the net and he does it. But like the Islanders don't need a force because you don't want them playing the opponent's game. Like Romanov laying his hit and then walking away. Like once you start the enforcer, then it's like, okay, we gotta fight now. I mean, look, Pajot fought. You don't need an enforcer to be physical. I think that's the other thing too is like taking liberties. The Islanders have not done an amazing job of standing up for their teammates when they've gotten hurt. I think it's become an issue.
Fair.
But at the same time, I think right now with the way they're playing, one, you're not changing the lineup up, so it doesn't matter about an enforcer. And two, they have guys that can fight. Scott Mayfield can fight. DeAngelo can fight now. Pajot can fight. But once you started getting into that game, then you're worrying about the individual parts of the game. Right now, the reason the Islanders are winning is because they're looking at the big picture of how to play the game and win. They shouldn't be deviating from that. Someone gets hit, someone gets hurt. Sure, stand up for them in the moment, but then go right back to playing your game. Because look at what happened to the Flyers. They try to come get back for an opponent that gets hurt, and they lose the hockey game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. How much more success would this team have right now if, like, Ross Johnston was still with the squad?
They have cap issues.
I don't know, But maybe the way to thwart that is to continue to play this hard-hitting, hard-checking game that they've been playing lately, because that's how you can make teams pay, and that's how you can make them think twice about their next step. Maybe they're not going to get fists thrown in their faces, but they might get crunched up against the boards a couple of times, right? And it's just, listen, it's just not really the game anymore.
Right.
And now
they have Martin,
fights are mostly staged now anyway, where it's two guys who are willing to fight. Yeah, you want to go? Okay, let's go. And then they pat each other on the back and they go sit in the box for 5 minutes.
And stuff, yeah.
Right. So, I understand. You have to, especially if the refs aren't going to help you out, you have to try to police the game a little bit. But I don't know if it's worth a roster spot to have a guy who can solely just kind of throw fists out
Martin.
there. And Martin's there.
He's not enforced anymore, but he's fought.
Right. Like, I don't know if they necessarily need to, they don't need to go that route.
Yeah. Next up from MJ Beckman, he says, Dobson is an RFA. If someone gave an offer sheet, do the Isles match, or is the haul they can get from letting him go make that more worthwhile?
Well, we haven't seen a lot of offer sheets. I don't know if a team would dare offer sheet Lou, to be quite honest. I don't know what the Islanders are going to do. It's one, Dobson's not had a great year, but he has the potential to be a 70-point guy. You don't just do that on accident. And I think having a lot of guys out of the lineup, a lot of his secondary assists were gone. A lot of primary assists to bars, like other players impact all those stats. Now, I think Dobson needs to be much better defensively. I don't think they
Absolutely.
I think the market sets him at, I think there was some analytics that came out that based on the cap rise, he's worth 10. False. I mean, he's not. 8 was the beginning number at the beginning of the year. Said, okay, $8 million over 8. But he hasn't played to earn that. And now you think
and now the injury's not going to help either.
When you look at Romanov, and I think he's more of a factor for the, like I don't want to say he's more important, but he does so much more than just provide off. Like he can provide the offense off the rush with assists. He's physical, he defends well, PK, and then Dobson's just offense. So you're looking at Romanov, who's more valuable in terms of money. We know how this works. Offensive players make more.
Correct.
But you're getting to the point where, Romanov and Dobson shouldn't be getting paid that far off from each other, unless you really think Dobson can do the 70 points again. If you think that's the case, having a bad year, sure. but it's probably leaning more towards 7. I don't think the Islanders, I think they may have, I'm not saying they were actively looking to trade Dobson, but any key piece like a Pettersson the Islanders are in love with, like probably would cost you a Dobson. But in terms of offer sheets, I don't think so. I think there's already a contract done, just waiting, or they'll have talks. But he is arbitration eligible too, so the Islanders do lowball him. He has the ability to fight back. I would again not want to be in an arbitration with Lou.
Right.
We know arbitrations get ugly, but yeah, I don't. Unless the Islanders are trading Dobson, I don't see him leaving. The question just is, what is his cap hit going to be?
Yeah, and I think he's just to talk about the contract real quick. I think he's going more towards a bridge deal. I feel like now than maybe a long-term one to maybe prove that he can get his points back up.
It's possible.
Yeah, well, funnily enough, the Wheel just chimed in with a question while you're going off. He said, given Dobson's play and now injury, does it make it a short-term contract more likely? Will Romanov end up getting the bigger contract this summer? So
yeah, I don't think just because the market is offensive players get paid more, I don't think Romanov's getting it, whether he deserves it or not. But the disparity between the two is getting smaller and smaller by the game.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Moving on, Enzeb asks, is there a Bridgeport jinx? They can't win. Player numbers are terrible. However, it seems like call-ups for the most part fill in pretty well. Hogberg, George, etc.
Yeah, well, I think it's more about the players just taking the opportunity they have at the NHL level. I don't think it's, they were playing well in Bridgeport, but they weren't winning. You can't really look at one guy down there besides Jeffries, who I think is also hurt now. You'd be like, hey, he deserves it. There was a role that needed to be filled. They had tried other people. Like Gacom got passed up by Gauthier, by Wallstrom, by Engvall all these guys. And now he comes up and he's playing. He's the first player to play the Cal Clutterbuck style that they've been waiting for since they didn't bring Clutterbuck back. Isaiah George comes up when there's injuries, and he had played 4 games in Bridgeport. 4 pro games in his entire career, comes up and just takes advantage. So I think it's more of stick taps to these players, just taking advantage of the opportunity they're given, rather than just like, it's Bridgeport, like they suck, call this guy up and just hope. Like they've shown a commitment and work ethic that we might as well give them a shot. We don't really have any other. That's the other thing is they don't have other options.
Right.
And it's paid off.
I don't know if more players, if they happen to come up through Bridge, are going to have similar results, but at least it's been so far so good.
Mm-hmm. Are the Islanders the only team without a third jersey? Is this a Lou thing or a poor marketing team?
I don't know if they're the only team, but with the jerseys going to Fanatics, usually with the way it works is most teams, not every team gets an alternate the first year. Like the Islanders will probably have an alternate next year. Does Lou have a say in that? I mean, he had a say in the Stadium Series stuff. Yeah, I think he has a say in all the jerseys in like the design, like the final say before they go to the league. But yeah, I don't think they're the only team. The Fanatics change over usually a year gap before they really start. Every team has one.
Yeah, I don't think they're the only team without a third, and I think you're right. I think they're going to have a new one next year.
And by the way, if they won the Stadium Series,
we talked about this last week.
If they won the Stadium Series game, they might have worn those again.
I like those. I thought those were nice.
I'm wearing the hat.
It's a shame.
I like it.
It looks great.
It looks great. Yeah, thanks for this, by the way, Sean.
Sure.
Could Lou sell Brock but have a contract in the bottom drawer waiting for him when he hits free agency?
Yeah, you call it the Aroldis Chapman.
Okay.
You trade, for people that aren't baseball fans.
For Sean's face, who was completely confused, he's like,
for Sean,
Aroldis Chapman.
What?
Islanders. Yankees had Aroldis Chapman. Traded him to the Cubs, ended up winning the World Series that year. They got back a couple of prospects, one of them being Gleyber Torres, and then that summer they signed Chapman back. Ideally, I think if they do move Nelson, to be honest, I don't think he's coming back. I just think there are other teams that probably will pay him more. I don't know if I don't know if the Islanders want to bring him back too, but
rarely happens. I think the only time I can recall when something like that, I think it was Keith Tkachuk. And if
I don't think I was alive.
You might not have been. You might not have been. Let's be honest. But if memory serves, I believe this was a circumstance where he was traded to the Atlanta Thrashers, and then he signed back. He signed back afterwards. I believe that's how the story goes. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm probably wrong, but it was something like that. But you never see it. Like, and this has always been a fun question for Islander fans, like year in, year out, where there's one guy who's impending. If they trade him, will they bring him back? I remember, I can't name anybody for you off the top of my head, but I know that like that question's been asked about other players over the years, and for whatever reason, it just doesn't happen. They probably settle in wherever they go. I'm sure whatever team he does go to might try to keep him anyway.
I think if we find out openly that he's going to a team as a pure rental, then that obviously is like, I feel like the Islanders would send him an offer in free agency and say, hey, we really want you back. We can't give you more than, let's say it's 5 or 6, right? And like for him, this is the first time he's really testing free agency off back-to-back 30-plus goal years, I don't think he should settle for 6. Let's say the Islanders are offering the same contract he has now, less years, but $6 million, $6.5 million. He deserves to make $7.5, $8 million. This is his last big contract of his career.
His next contract's going to be interesting because he's already very old for the NHL standards. You know what I mean?
I count his career I count his rookie year as Trotz's first year because that's when he really started to play the player he is.
Right.
So his
Yeah, but age don't change, man.
That being said, though, we've talked about it a lot when Char was here, when Parise was here. Age is only a number if you play to it.
Yeah, eventually, it'll happen to you soon enough, Stefen. Don't you worry.
But Brock Nelson, we kept saying every year, they probably got to trade him last year, the year before that, because at some point he's going to fall off, and then he hasn't been great for a couple of months.
Him and Anders Lee are proving all of that wrong right now.
Right. So if you're the Islanders, if you get him, in theory, if you do trade him and you get him back at what you're paying him right now, and you get the whatever you get back, picks, prospects, it's a slam dunk move. Does Nelson move your needle and make you better for next year? That's the question. They want to get younger and faster.
Right.
However, with the trade with Colorado, that'll be the big concern is that wherever the Islanders are trading Brock, they'll win the trade, but they're not going to be better after that trade because you can't replace a 30-plus goal scorer that does everything. Rantanen, them trading Rantanen, Necas is a great player back, but like Evan said, you're not replacing Rantanen. He's a top 4 goal scorer, I think, in the NHL the last couple of years.
Not only that, but whatever team trades for Nelson isn't going to give up a good player because they're going to hang on to those players
they're a playoff team
to go for the cup. Right. So it's going to be picks and prospects.
Right.
One more, Ed.
Another one from MJ Beckman. He says, what did the team do with the kid-made banners that hung on the 300s that was replaced by the new Ring of Honor?
They burned them. No, I don't know. No, they didn't burn
Storage?
them. I'm not sure they did. They definitely didn't throw them out, I don't think. They're probably somewhere. It's a great question, but I don't think they were Facebook Live. I don't know. But the Ring of Honor looks really cool.
Facebook Marketplace, maybe.
Right, true.
Yeah.
But good question. Maybe give you one more. I didn't know that one.
This one from the Wheel. He said, is there a guy like Matt Martin on other teams? A guy who the community just loves and brings back that we just don't hear about?
Eric Johnson on the Flyers. He was a healthy scratch since November. Mm-hmm. He came back in the lineup because Zamula couldn't play, but that guy is just... They love him there. Teammates love him. The organization loves him. The community loves him. He just sits there, waits.
There you go.
Maybe even Calvin DeHaan too. I don't know.
Maybe.
I know it's his first year there, but I think there's a lot of guys. Oh, we talked about it with Bell about Utah. Spicy Tuna.
Oh, Spicy Tuna.
Right. He doesn't play, and that might be the best answer I could give for that because they love him there.
There you go.
Yeah, there we have it.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for Questions Bruin. Thank you all for throwing in your questions. If we didn't get to it, we apologize. We will try next time. And, of course, a big thanks to Jack for joining us, throwing in some great questions. Appreciate it.
Thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely, always.
The best J letter name to say.
Yeah, we got a Jack here, a Jake here, a J here. It's a lot.
My brother's name is Jamie. Yeah.
That doesn't really factor in, Stefen.
My middle name is James.
Great. We're learning so much tonight.
January. Sorry.
Okay. We got to wrap this show up. It's time to throw the towel in. All right, folks, let's wrap it up. I'm going to start, though, by reminding you about the Patreon. Yes, go to patreon.com/HockeyNightNY for exclusive content featuring Q&As, columns, videos behind the scenes, merchant partner discounts, and even an invitation to hang with us here at Floyd Media while we air the show, just like Jack has done tonight. It's a great way to support what we do here, so please check it on out. And Ed, please hit that outro music. Want to send a big thanks to Evan Rawal of the Denver Gazette for talking some Avs with us, talking about the trade. Great stuff from him. And a big thanks to our wonderful sponsors, starting with Main Street Board Game Cafe, located at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. Find out how to unplug your game at mainstboardgamecafe.com. A big thanks to Center Station Bar and Grill. Head on down to 279A Sunrise Highway in Rockville Center for aisles, games, live music, karaoke, comedy shows, and more. And a big thanks to Razor and Kniff, attorneys at law. Nobody likes going to court, but if you have to, call 212-LAW-1500 for a free consultation. And last but not least, a very big thanks to Tovi Hockey, creators of the Diamond Air Blade. Go to tovihockey.com to check out their great products and use promo code HNINY10 for 10% off your order. And once again, a thanks to Jack for hanging out with us here Rate, review, and subscribe to the show if you don't already. Please, Stefen Rosner, where can we find you on the internet?
Yes, that's so weird way to phrase it. But
why?
I don't know. Stefen.
That's where it is.
Yeah, it's true. Stefen _Rosner, STEFEN_ROSNER. The Hockey News, NHL.com, and the Elmonters, my Monday through Friday newsletter. Exclusive content in there, so check that one out at theelmonters.com.
There you have it. You can follow myself at Shawnee Hockey. One real place, really. It's on the Twitter at Shawnee Hockey. You can follow Jake Radonis at Jake Radonis on social media. He can't speak for himself right now. And you can follow the show at Hockey Night NY on all social media platforms. You can check out the website at hockeynightny.com for columns, features, stories, all coverage of your beloved New York Islanders. So,
anyway, you can follow Jack.
Maybe you can follow Jack if you want. He doesn't want you to follow him. Never mind.
Kidding.
I love it. I love it. If only.
He's like a Lou Lamoriello burner account.
There you go. There you go. So, for Stefen, for Jake the Snake Radonis, for Ed, for Jay, I've been Sean Cuthbert. We've been Hockey Night in New York, and we will see you next time.